All right, welcome back. I'm Austin Westfall. Let's get the latest on the Middle East. Dr. Alon Burstein is standing by, as always, Alon. It's good to see you. There's a lot to get to, as always. We want to start off with something that I know you've been following closely this week. On Friday, Israel's defense minister said that he had instructed the military to, quote, seize more ground in Gaza and threatened to annex part of the territory unless Hamas released all hostages, living and dead, that are still held in the enclave. Alon, what do we make of the words seize and annex? How easy is it for Israel to do such in Gaza?
Good to see you, Austin. Yeah, what we've seen really is an escalation, a gradual escalation in the rhetoric of Israel with regards to how it intends to punish Hamas for what it considers walking away from the negotiations. Hamas is saying it's still open to negotiations. We can talk a little bit about who's standing where on the negotiations. Originally, Israel said that it is going to start the military pressure and reignite the military campaign in order to bring Hamas back to the negotiating table. Then the rhetoric started to change. And the Minister of Defense said that the military pressure is going to continue until all hostages are released. That's different. That's different than coming to negotiations. That's saying until all the hostages are released. Then a later thing was said, this was said on Friday, Minister of Defense upped the ante again and added two things. First, he said, like you said, that territory is going to be taken over and annexed by Israel as a punishment for Hamas. As long as Hamas does not release hostages, the Palestinians are going to be seen to be losing territory. But importantly, in that statement, he also added a second thing, and he said, until all hostages are released and Hamas is destroyed. That's really upping the ante. Now, is that actually going to happen? At this point, it seems unlikely. For Israel to annex territory from the occupied Palestinian territories from the West Bank and the Gaza Strip is not that easy. Israel has held the territory in the West Bank since 1967, and in the Gaza Strip, it held it since 1967 until 2005. It's always threatened to annex it. It never actually has, except for East Jerusalem. It never actually has. Such a move would run up against a lot of internal legal problems within Israel. It would come up before the Israeli High Court of Justice. It's also questionable if the Trump administration would support this. Even if we take the most radical interpretation of Trump's plan for the Gaza Strip, if we say that it is the complete ethnic cleansing of all Palestinians, driving them elsewhere and rebuilding Gaza and the Riviera of the Middle East, in his plan, that does not then belong to Israel. That's not Israel expanding its borders. So I take this more as a threat and something that's meant to sort of cater to Israel's more right-wing hawkish coalition, some of which want to annex the Gaza Strip. I take that more as a threat and looking at that rather than something that's actually going to happen. Even if it would happen, it's not going to happen in the next week or two. That is something that would take years. At this point, Israel is simply upping the ante, trying without actually retaking the entire Gaza Strip, trying to constantly threaten and say, look, if you don't, we're quote unquote done playing games. And that's just how I read this rhetoric.
Yeah, as you know, this week the IDF once again moved ground forces into Gaza. What do we know about how much Hamas has rehabilitated during the temporary truce? Did it likely give them time to reorganize Alone? Is the IDF targeting things on the ground there that weren't there before?
So when we think about Hamas in the Gaza Strip, we really have to think about two different systems. There is the political system, that is the system that was the governing body of Hamas. That includes everything that we think of in a government. I know that when we think of Hamas, we think of a terror group, and it is labeled as a terror group. But when it governed the Gaza Strip, it also had civil servants. It also had postal workers. It also had sewage workers. It had educational workers. It had hospital workers. All of these were part of the Hamas government. Then we have Hamas's military wing, the Al-Qassam brigades, and the two, even though they support each other, do really operate sort of distinctly. One of the interesting things that Israel has done as it returned to fighting now in the last week is it specifically did not target Hamas's military infrastructure. Instead, it focused almost all of its attacks on Hamas's civilian infrastructures, the attempt to rebuild its governing apparatus in the Gaza Strip. Among the list of those who were assassinated is Issam Da'alis. He was the Hamas prime minister in the Gaza Strip. Others are the minister of interior in charge of the police. So Israel really focused its attacks on the Hamas governing capabilities. I think possibly out of sort of looking more forward, looking ahead, Israel's going to encounter the Al-Qassam brigades no matter what, the military wing, but the governing apparatus is really what Israel would like to stop Hamas from rebuilding. Now, has Hamas managed to rebuild? In some way, both of those apparatuses, the governing system and the military wing, have been rehabilitating themselves throughout the entire time. But mostly during the truce, it was the governing apparatus, the political wing that really rebuilt itself. Because the Al Qassam brigades, the military wing, throughout the entire war has been rebuilding itself. It is constantly, it's losing troops, it's training new troops, it's losing ground, it is gaining ground elsewhere. According to intelligence reports in Israel and the United States, Israel managed to kill between 14,000 and 17,000 militants in the Gaza Strip. Hamas, during the war, not during the truce, during the active fighting, was able to recruit between 10,000 and 15,000 new fighters. So the Al Qassam Brigades is constantly rebuilding itself. What really was not able to rebuild itself during the active fighting is the governing apparatus. The entire civil infrastructure collapsed. There was no such thing as social services, no such thing as police officers. One of the very basic functions that happened when the truce started is Hamas mayors came out of hiding and started directing traffic. Like, the roads are destroyed, no one knows where to go. It's hard for us to sort of conceptualize in the quote unquote Western world. But if you think about where you're living, all of a sudden the entire roads are bombed down. Now people are starting to drive. You need basic police officers. That's really what Hamas has invested in rebuilding since the truce, primarily because it wants to show Israel, the Arab world, the Western world, and mostly the population of Gaza, we're still here. It's been 15 months, but still you haven't instated any other government in Gaza. So guess what? We're the only government in Gaza. One more thing I'll say about that is very, very important. During the truce, over 25,000 aid trucks carrying food, water, gas, cooking oil, humanitarian aid, shelters entered into the Gaza Strip. There is no other governing apparatus in Gaza to manage and organize this. There is the United Nations, but Israel is not working with the United Nations Relief and Work Agency, UNRWA, because it says that it supports Hamas. There are other smaller aid agencies, but bottom line, you need a governing apparatus to organize and manage this. Somewhat regrettably, I'll say, the only governing apparatus in the Gaza Strip is Hamas. Now aid is cut off from the Gaza Strip. Guess what? The one that manages to largely take hold of the humanitarian aid and then distribute it, the one that's the only functional government at this point, is still the Hamas apparatus.
Tough situation. Live look at Gaza, early morning hours there in the Middle East. Not only Gaza do we have our eyes on, we've also, for the first time in some time, we've been looking up north as well. Israel struck Lebanon on Saturday, and I think we do have a tweet from the IDF saying such for our producers here. Israel did strike in Lebanon on Saturday. It was in retaliation for rockets targeting Israel. It killed 6 people, including a child, in the heaviest exchange of fire alone since the ceasefire with the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah began almost 4 months ago. The rockets fired from Lebanon were the second ones launched since December. Is it feeling like the ceasefire up north is in danger of breaking?
To be completely honest, I wouldn't go that far yet. What happened in the current situation is the fighting started up again. Now, when the fighting had started between Israel and Hamas back on October 7th, 2023, everyone in the region was called to action. Hezbollah, starting October 8th, a day after the war broke out, started firing its rockets. And the Houthis, a month later, also got involved. Now Hezbollah has largely been knocked out of the picture as a result of the IDF and Mossad activity that happened, primarily, again, the beeper attack and all those things that we talked about for months. Hezbollah has largely been knocked out of the picture. Ever since the fighting returned, Hezbollah made a lot of statements. None of them threatened that they are going to start firing missiles again. None of them threatened that they're going to be active again. They condemned. Hezbollah is really, really busy trying to lick its wounds. It is trying to rebuild its political strength in Lebanon. I always say we have to look to internal politics. Hezbollah absolutely cannot afford another engagement with the IDF right now. Then all of a sudden, fighting returns, and we have the launching of 6 rockets. 3 of them crashed in Lebanon, and 3 of them made it over to the Israeli northern town of Metula. The IDF is going to respond to this as though Hezbollah has broken the ceasefire. In truth, Hezbollah put out a message within an hour screaming, "It is not us. It was not us. Please do not attack us. We are not violating the ceasefire." More than that, they pledged to work with the Lebanese government in order to try to resolve the situation. It's up for grabs if you believe them or don't believe them. I will say that Hezbollah at this point has very little interest in taking part in the fighting. And more than that, if they do, then they have no interest in denying that. Then they are in a lose-lose situation. So Israel is retaliating against Hezbollah as though it came from Hezbollah, because as far as Israel is concerned, they said rockets coming from Lebanon, we're hitting back. We're hitting back because that's a violation. We don't care who it was. Was this in fact Hezbollah? I would bet probably not. Hamas does have a presence in southern Lebanon. Palestinian Islamic Jihad has a presence in Lebanon. Amal, another group, has a presence in Lebanon. I will say that the Lebanese military also tried very hard to show that they are taking this seriously, that they're not going to let the situation deteriorate again. They quickly swung into action. They have claimed to have already found the 3 launchers from which these rockets were launched. And interestingly, those were found north of the Litani River. The reason that's important is because the entire deal between Israel and Lebanon says that the Lebanese army is going to purge southern Lebanon, south of the Litani River, of any hostile activity. So the Lebanese military is trying very hard to say, look, this happened in northern Lebanon where no one is violating the deal. Please, let's not get there. I think that's how Hezbollah wants to see it. Lebanon wants to see it. Remains to be seen if Israel is going to accept this and say, okay, another group fired the rockets, so we'll spiral it down or not. We're probably not seeing a full escalation there at this point, but obviously remains to be seen. If more rockets come, we may be in a different setting.
Before we go, I'll pose a wide-ranging question to you. What are we watching for this week, whether it's on the Hamas front, whether it's on the Lebanon front, whether it's on the Houthi front, whether it's something else? What are you looking ahead to this week?
So really what I'm looking to this week is the focus is between Israel and Hamas. And I'll say also internal Israeli politics and what's happening in that arena. Because as I said, what's happening between Israel and Hezbollah, there might be more rockets, but chances are we're not going to see a complete breakdown of the deal. At worst, we'll see the IDF carrying out airstrikes in retaliation. The Houthis, every 2 or 3 days, are launching ballistic missiles at Israel. I don't belittle that. I am just saying the United States has asked Israel to not retaliate, so chances are we're going to see the same dynamic, ballistic missiles coming, the United States responding to Yemen. What we're really going to see, and what we should be looking at, is what is going to be the development in the Gaza Strip. Something that I mentioned, I think, the last time we spoke, it is unprecedented historically and internationally. Israel has invaded the Gaza Strip. Gaza Strip is controlled largely by Hamas, a terror group. Hamas has not retaliated. They have not engaged the IDF at all. They haven't fought them on the ground. They haven't set off roadside bombs. They've sent a couple of rockets, and that is it. That is unprecedented for a terror group to just be saying, okay, you can take over territory. We're still going to ask for negotiations. Really, the next couple of days are going to be the ones that determined what's the trajectory of the next phase. Is Hamas going to say, okay, enough's enough. The IDF is now pushed into too much territory and we're going to start engaging them and then we'll see full swing back into the war? Or is Hamas going to continue to say, okay, we're still calling on negotiating parties? That is going to start mounting pressure on Israel. The United States has already sent some signals that they're not happy with just a return to fire with no aim and no end. And that will mount more pressure on Israel to possibly spiral down. The last thing is, again, internal politics in Israel are really coming to a boil. Tens of thousands of people were protesting in the streets because of internal things that have to do with the dismissal of the head of the General Security Service and things like that. But we're starting to see some spillover already into people saying, and this war is futile, and we're not getting anywhere with the war. And if the political pressure mounts there, also going to be one of the big game changers. So I'm looking at Hamas in Gaza and internal politics in Israel.
Alon uploads his own updates on his personal YouTube channel related to the Middle East. Alon, as always, good to see you. Have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Have a good night.